It is May 4th, 1980. President Josip Broz Tito has died, a man whose iron rule was feared and respected throughout the Balkans. Tito's death leaves Yugoslavia to descend into a bout of stagnation and rampant nationalism. The die was cast. As the unity of the Federal Republic fractured, Yugoslavia's various peoples could only wonder who would make the first move. Across the Yugoslav constituent republics, nationalists drew from ethnic and religious tensions whose histories ran deep in the region. Historically, the nation of Yugoslavia was seen as a union of differing ethnic groups, formed in the aftermath of the First World War. As the Kingdom of Serbia merged with the remnant provinces of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and with it the diverse populations that lived there. Of these groups, the most influential were the Serbs, who had a larger population, demographic, and whose territory also hosted the Yugoslav government throughout all of its iterations. Even under Tito, a self-identified Croat, the Serbian city of Belgrade remained a Yugoslav capital. From Belgrade, the federal government aimed to keep the country together over the tenuous years following Tito's death. Tensions eventually reached a boiling point, as many non-Serbs felt that they no longer had a place within the Yugoslav state, and fighting broke out in Croatia in August 1990. Anticipating escalation, the Yugoslav military disarmed the territorial units of Slovenia and Croatia. The Serb minority living in Croatia opposed the push for independence, fearing that their sovereignty would be curbed in the new Croatian state. The Croatian Serbs rose up in arms to resist the Croatian government. Escalation to this conflict occurred in May 1991, as Croatian Serb paramilitaries clashed with Croatian police in the village of Borovo Selo. On June 25th, both Slovenia and Croatia would carry out their intentions to secede from the crumbling Yugoslav state and declared independence. In response, the Yugoslav army was dispatched to put the uprisings down. The first of the Yugoslav Wars had begun. Special thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Manscaped, trusted by more than 9 million men worldwide for their trimmers, hygiene and shower formulations, and premium boxers. As an online personality, I'm mindful about how I appear on camera, so I was excited to receive the Beard Hedger Pro Kit by Manscaped. The Beard Hedger has more than 20 haircutting lengths that can be selected with the zoom wheel, so you don't have to worry about a million clip-on guard attachments to get the job done, for wet or dry operation and easy cleaning. I also received Manscaped's dermatologist-tested beard oil, which is designed to keep your skin and facial hair hydrated, as well as their paraben-free, phthalate-free, and dye-free beard balm. The kit also comes with Manscaped's beard shampoo and conditioner, which leaves your beard feeling soft and smelling fantastic, and an accessory pack that includes a beard comb, beard scissors, and beard brush. Support our channel and go to manscaped.com today to get 20% off plus free international shipping when you use promo code DIA at checkout. Growing a magnificent beard is possible thanks to the help from the Manscaped Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Just 2 days after Slovenia's independence, the Federal Army was ordered to secure their border crossings. But Slovenian police, alongside Slovenian territorial defense, blockaded barracks and roads, leading to a series of standoffs and limited skirmishes that would be known as the 10-Day War. After several dozen casualties, the conflict ended through negotiation on the 7th of July, 1991, when Slovenia and Croatia agreed to a 3-month moratorium on secession. The Federal Army withdrew on October 26, granting Slovenia full independence. Macedonia also declared independence and would be the only Yugoslav republic to secede peacefully. Croatia would not be as lucky. Over the summer of 1991, Much of the conflict between Croatian Serb militias and the Croatian government had escalated into all-out war. For Croatia, the disarmament of their territorial units was aggravated by an arms embargo over Yugoslavia, imposed by the United Nations. This severe weapons shortage crippled the Croat response to insurrections by Serb minorities, and new fronts began to form around these breakaway Croatian Serb states. On the other hand, these Serb minority states were not hindered by the federal government. This was thanks to assistance from the Yugoslav army, which was becoming increasingly pro-Serb as other minorities drifted away from federal service. This was helped in part thanks to figures like Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic, whose nationalist sympathies were protected by the remaining Yugoslav Authority, leaving Serbia and Montenegro as the core constituents of the Federal Republic. It was here that Milosevic and other Serb nationalists working within Yugoslavia pushed to further their own ethnic influence, with a 1994 report by the UN even claiming that the Serbs did not aim to restore Yugoslavia, but instead hoped to create a greater Serbia from parts of Croatia and Bosnia following the war. While the Croatian government struggled with the rogue Serb provinces, they also clashed with federal forces. August of 1991 saw the Battle of Vukovar, where intense fighting took place between Croat and Yugoslav army forces as the Croat attempted to block federal advances into Slavonia. Meanwhile, the city of Dubrovnik would come under siege in October, becoming a highlight for the international press, who focused on the damage to Dubrovnik's architectural heritage over the destruction of Vukovar, left devastated by the end of October as a result of land shelling and air bombardment. Other cities like Karlovac and Osijek would also sustain extensive damage during Yugoslav offensive. Control over central Croatia was seized by Croatian Serb rebels, who were assisted by Yugoslav forces from Bosnia and Herzegovina, led by Ratko Mladic. These gains led to the Vance Plan in January 1992, which placed the new Croatian Serb territories under UN control and brought an end to major military operations until 1995. By March of 1992, the fervor of secession had spread to Bosnia and Herzegovina, who declared independence following their own referendum. Like Croatia, the Serb minority living in Bosnia also resisted independence, rising up to assist the Yugoslav army in suppressing the new Bosniak government. Led by ultra-nationalist Radovan Karadzic, the Bosnian Serbs promised to split off from the Bosniaks and maintain their own breakaway state, just as the Croatian Serbs had done. Perhaps more confusingly, the Bosnian Croat minority also rose up to establish its own quasi-state, though they remained on cooperative terms with the Bosniaks. The Bosnian Croats also received support from President Franjo Tuđman of Croatia as they fought off the Bosnian Serbs, supported by President Milosevic. The war would come quickly to Bosnia, with the capital of Sarajevo being put under siege in April by the Yugoslav People's Army, who continued to surround the city until early June, when they evacuated, handing the remainder of the siege over to the Bosnian Serbs under Karadzic. Later that year, federal forces would retreat from Bosnia, but left their weapons to the Bosnian Serbs, who pressed their assaults on many cities throughout the rest of Bosnia. During October, ethnic tensions between Bosnian Croats and Bosniaks turned violent, leading to the collapse of their alliance. Soon after, both factions were facing each other in open conflict, leading Bosnia into a three-way war. By early 1993, attempting to regain control over Croatian territory, the Bosnians would launch Operation Neretva in September of that year advancing along a 200-kilometer-long front from Gornji Vakov to the south of Mostar. The offensive yielded little success and eventually settled in a stalemate. The Croat-Bosniak War would be fully resolved in March 1994, when the two sides brokered a new peace and turned their focus back to combating Bosnian Serbs. During this chaos, the city of Sarajevo had remained under siege by Bosnian Serbs for almost 2 years. The city suffered two especially devastating shellings on February 5, 1994, both targeting the Markale marketplace in the historic core of Sarajevo, which led to the deaths of 68 people. A day after the first massacre, UN Secretary-General Boutros Ghali formally requested NATO to confirm that airstrikes would be carried out against the besiegers. International pressure had forced Yugoslavia to suspend all financial and military support for the Bosnian Serbs, though this did little to quell their own offensives. Overall, the siege of Sarajevo would last for a total of almost 4 years, making it one of the longest sieges in modern warfare, 3 times longer than the Battle of Stalingrad, and a year longer than the Siege of Leningrad. If you would like to see this topic explored in further detail, please consider subscribing to Armchair History TV. Beyond the horrific war crimes on display, much of the Yugoslav conflicts were noted for the level of involvement from the international community. The European community and the U.S. helped facilitate treaties and peace negotiations wherever possible. As conditions worsened in the region, international involvement also took on more direct roles, starting with the establishment of uncontrolled demilitarized zones aimed at protecting ethnic minority enclaves or areas with heavy civilian presence. Much criticism has since been levied against the UN, who did little to enforce international rules or protect victims who were often subject to attempts at ethnic cleansing from paramilitary groups or forced to move on as refugees. As the war continued, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization would become involved in the war, helping the UN enforce no-fly zones over critical areas like Bosnia and later Kosovo. During the Banja Luka incident, NATO fighters shot down 4 Bosnian Serb fighters for violating a no-fly zone, making it the first combat operation in NATO history. Escalations between international forces and paramilitary groups also occurred, like in April 1994, when U.S. airstrikes against the Bosnian Serb command near Gorazde resulted in the retaliatory capture of over 150 UN personnel. As many as 400 NATO aircraft participated in the air campaign, with a total of over 3,500 sorties flown and over 1,020 bombs dropped on Bosnian Serb targets located across 48 complexes. NATO aircraft struck 97% of their targets and seriously damaged more than 80% of them, a factor that forced the Bosnian Serbs to lift the siege of Sarajevo once and for all. The war in Croatia would end in 1995, following Operation Flash and Operation Storm, with Croatia reclaiming all of its territory back from the Croatian Serbs, except the east portion of Slavonia that bordered Serbia. Most of the Serb population in the reclaimed areas fled and became refugees, while the areas of Sector East, unaffected by the Croatian military operations, came under UN administration and were reintegrated into Croatia in 1998 under the terms of the Erdut Agreement. In Bosnia, combined Bosniak-Croat ground advances and NATO airstrikes forced the Bosnian Serbs to lift their siege and eventually come to the negotiating table. The war ended with the signing of the Dayton Agreement on the 14th of December 1995, with the formation of the Republika Srpska as an entity within Bosnia and Herzegovina. Yugoslavia would also recognize Croatia's independence along with Bosnia and Herzegovina's in 1996. As the conflicts in Croatia and Bosnia were drawing to a close, a new crisis opened up in the autonomous region of Serbia known as Kosovo. Historically, Kosovo was populated by a majority of ethnic Albanians, though it also has shared a sizable Serb minority. Since 1989, Kosovo Albanians had been attempting to resist repressive political actions from the Serbian president, beginning first as non-violent movements. However, by 1996, an ethnic Albanian paramilitary group known as the Kosovo Liberation Army, or KLA, would attack Serbian police forces in retaliation for the abuse and murder of Albanian civilians. As negotiations for peace failed, violence continued to escalate. Yugoslav forces soon began a massive campaign of repression and expulsions of Kosovo Albanians, provoking a response from NATO air sorties, which eventually forced the Yugoslav army to pull out of the region in 1999. While Kosovo officially remained a part of Yugoslavia, it was independent in all but name. The Kosovans would eventually declare independence in 2008, but only achieved limited recognition, with around 100 UN members recognizing their state. The end of the Kosovo War would also mark the end of Milosevic, who would be overthrown in the bulldozer revolution on October 5, 2000. Albanian troubles would not end in Kosovo. Soldiers from the recently disbanded KLA would go on to join other ethnic Albanian paramilitaries, such as the Liberation Army of Preševo, Medveta, and Bujanovic, who fought against federal forces in the Preševo Valley between 1991 and 2001. Former KLA members also joined the Macedonian insurgency that erupted in 2001, with fighters of the Albanian National Liberation Army attacking the security forces belonging to the Republic of Macedonia. This conflict lasted throughout most of the year, and overall casualties remained limited to several dozen individuals on either side. Conflict was ended by the Ohrid Agreement, which was brokered by NATO, giving greater political rights to Macedonian Albanians, which to this day make up about a quarter of North Macedonia's population. Towards the mid to late 2000s, repercussions for the crimes committed throughout the wars began to take effect through the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. Since its establishment in 1993, over 161 persons have been indicted, with many fugitives passing final judgment. Among the most notable cases were Radovan Karadzic, Ramush Haradinaj, and Slobodan Prajic, with the latter famously committing suicide in the courtroom upon rejecting his verdict. The last fugitive of the conflict, Goran Hadzic, was arrested in 2011. However, despite these convictions, many problems still persist in the region. Millions of weapons are estimated to be in circulation among the civilian population, with many making their way onto the black arms markets. More disturbingly, some of these weapons have been connected to crimes committed in other parts of Europe, such as the 2015 attacks in Paris and Gothenburg. Drug trafficking remains a constant problem, especially among elements of the CLAA and organized crime that took advantage of the chaos during the wars. Infamous for the atrocities and destruction, memories of the Yugoslav Wars still cut deep for many left affected to this day. Estimates put the number of killed across each war at 140,000, with 2.4 million left as refugees, and an additional 2 million internally displaced. Many post-Yugoslav nations now strive for integration with the European Union, hoping to move on from their dark past, but challenges of unresolved crimes and ethnic divide remain ever present to this day.